Taking on the Knicks on Tuesday, the Heat got a hell of a win, controlling the game from start to finish and sending Knicks fans sadly limping into the humid air outside Kaseya Center. A good damn win for a Miami team that really needed it. From Terry Rozier's ridiculous shot making to Haywood Highsmith defense, we'll break down the game on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucaneat.com. Joining me as always, NBA media member David Ramil. However you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. As a reminder, this week on Friday night, we are holding our Locked On Heat watch party for the Heat's game against the Rockets at the Taurus in Coconut Grove. Can't wait to meet some of you guys. We got happy hour extended throughout the game. We got meal deals, a Locked On Heat cocktail, a bunch of surprises. Again, April 5th at the Taurus in Coconut Grove, Heat Rockets. Game starts at 8 p.m. Eastern. Really hope to see you there. Recording this on a Tuesday night from Kaseya Center after the Heat beat the Knicks 109-99. The Heat are now a half game back of Indiana for 6th place. Phillies win tonight keeps them a game and a half behind Miami for 7th. Well, let's talk about this game, David. A statement win by the Heat. What was your takeaway from this one?
It's just a good start to finish game for Miami. Really intense defensive effort, I think. And then Terry Rozier is the absolute story of the game. I think like there are so many players that stepped up during varying moments throughout the game, but it was Terry Rozier coming up big consistently throughout the game. 34 points, 10 of 15 shooting, 8 of 11. When you look to the final score, that's basically what it was. He was the difference maker for Miami. We keep talking about what an impact Terry will have, and we'll talk about him throughout the show because fans are curious because he's just taken on such an incredibly large role, one that I don't think a lot of people expect him to because this is Bam's team. This is Jimmy's team. And then Terry was kind of meant to complement those and alongside Tyler Hero, who unfortunately is lost still due to injury, but he has become the go-to player in large stretches of the game, whether it's when the offense bogs down throughout the game, late in the game, when you need a score, especially as New York was clawing their way back and actually managed to tie a game when they were down 16 at one point. Terry really saved this effort for Miami.
He did, and the tough shot making at the end of shot clocks, tough shots, bailout shots, the step-back three-pointer that he has, the sidestep shots that he has, the fading away shots that he has. I mean, he was creating so much, especially at the end of those shot clocks. Miami's biggest problem for a few years now has been their half-court offense.
Sure.
And the acquisition of Terry Rozier before the deadline was, okay, let's do something to deal with this because whatever we're doing right now in the half-court hasn't been working. And Jimmy Butler occasionally being, a 30-point per game scorer wasn't going to be enough. Kyle Lowry trying to outsmart defenses just wasn't enough at this stage in his career. Tyler Hero being in and out of the lineup with injuries really hurt them, and they just said, you know what, we need one other guy, and Terry Rozier has been that guy. I know it was a rough start for him when he got to Miami, but he's really found his footing. The coaching staff is telling him, hey, take these shots. Well, he took his shots. He took 15 a team high tonight, 11 of which were three-pointers. Eric Spoelstra has been on him about taking as many threes as possible. You know that there is an understanding from this coaching staff, as much as they don't talk about analytics to the media and stuff like that.
Sure.
There is an understanding that, hey, analytically, we were kind of on the other side of sort of the line of demarcation of we're taking too many mid-range jumpers,
right,
and we're not getting to the rim enough, and we're not taking enough threes. And Terry Rozier helps them in both of those cases. In that fourth quarter, it was Terry Rozier running pick and roll with Bam Adebayo over and over and over again. And I know Bam only had like 15 points tonight, but he was a team high plus 13. You mentioned the complimentary part of Terry Rozier's game. Okay, Bam, his defense tonight was sensational. His defense lately has been incredible. Defensive Player of the Year caliber stuff. Miami now climbing to 5th in defensive rating for the season. So he actually does have a legit case to be made for Defensive Player of the Year. He's not going to win it. Kind of feels like it's already Rudy Gobert's and wrapped up. But still, that doesn't matter. For the Heat's purposes, he's playing at that level, and that's the most important part for them. So he's got that. Jimmy Butler, a relatively quiet night for him, but he's doing Jimmy Butler things. He was picked up Jalen Brunson early in the game. He was in the game for the entire fourth quarter, making plays for others, driving, kicking, things like that. And then it was Terry Rozier making shots. So he was very complimentary. He was that third guy, and obviously Miami's leading scorer with 34 points.
Yeah, that really is a story of the game. It was a really interesting one for Miami because they held on to the lead for almost the entirety of the game. Like at one point, it was 11-10 in New York's favor, and from there, Miami just kind of opened up their offense. They were playing their defensive game, leading into easy offense for them. They were knocking down those 3-point shots, hitting, what was it, almost 40, yeah, 45%.
45%, yeah.
45% from three-point range. To your point earlier, 38 of those three-point attempts. That's a lot higher than we've seen. There were games there where Miami would average around 18, 19, 20 three-pointers a game, and their offense looked completely dead in the water. Tonight, 38. That's the kind of balanced shot selection that you want. 74 total field goal attempts, which means that over half of them were from three-point range. That is...
So I'm looking at this right now.
I don't think I've ever seen that from my Miami Heat team where over half their field goal attempts are three-pointers.
It's rare. It's definitely rare. Yeah, that has not been the case lately because even if you look at their last 6 games, they're averaging 38.2 three-point attempts per game over these last 6, which is obviously trending in that direction that we want them to be trending in. But they've taken, in those games, an average of 86 shots. Not 74 shots like they did tonight. So you're absolutely right. Like a huge percentage of those were threes. And that's a big part of how the Knicks play, right? Tom Thibodeau, he's going to overload the strong side. He's going to overload the painted area. He's going to take away the rim as much as he possibly can. How many points in the paint did Miami have tonight? 34 to New York's 38? That makes sense. But they really outscored them from the three-point line, and that's ultimately what won them the game. The Knicks did climb back into this one. The Heat got out to a 16-point lead. They were up by 10 at one point in the fourth quarter. The Knicks tie the game at 92 points with 4 minutes left. Haywood Highsmith, who we do need to talk about a lot more, he's going to get some credit cookies here. A big three-pointer to go up 95-92 with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left. And then a couple free throws go back and forth. It's 96-94, and this is where, to me, the game really turned. 96-94, around 3 minutes left. Rozier gets fouled, makes both free throws. Haywood Highsmith defends Jalen Brunson in the paint as he had all night and forces the ball and forces a miss from Brunson. Terry Rozier on the other end runs pick and roll with Bam Adebayo. They end up getting a shot on goal. They get a tip in. Terry Rozier on defense forces Jalen Brunson to dribble the ball out of bounds. Jimmy Butler makes a fading mid-range jumper on the other end. The Heat go up 102-94 with a minute and 52 seconds left. That was basically the game right there. They got the Knicks tied it. It was kind of a 2-3-point game there for a minute, and then the Heat went on that last little spurt there. And the name I kept mentioning there, Jimmy Butler, Haywood Highsmith, of course, but was Terry Rozier. It was Rozier over and over and over again making big plays, and this is what Heat fans need. This is what they wanted. This is what we all anticipated potentially happening here. I love this version of Terry Rozier. I am so glad that positive regression back to the average. Everybody, oh my God, he can't shoot, he can't make any threes, all these things. I'm like, guys, this guy's been in the league for 8-9 years, whatever it is. Look at the greater sample size. This guy can shoot. This guy can score. He could score at the basket. He can make threes at a high clip. Like, this guy's a scorer. I'm going to trust the larger sample over the smaller sample. And finally, we're getting some positive regression back to what it is that this guy's capable of. And on that final three-pointer, David.
Oh, my God.
Jimmy, we're at the end of the shot clock.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Butler is coming up from the opposite corner. Terry Rozier is handling the ball at the top of the key. Jimmy Butler's coming up from the top of the corner, the opposite corner, to bail out Terry Rozier. Hey, give me the ball. I'm Jimmy Butler. I'm the star of the team. Let me take the final shot here to seal the game. Terry Rozier goes away from Jimmy Butler as Jimmy Butler is coming towards him, uses the Bam Adebayo screen, and starts fading to his right and hits that step to the right jumper that Eric Spoelstra said after the game. He thinks it's his most comfortable, jumper. It's his most comfortable shot, and boy, did it look like it, because it was nothing but net. An incredible shot, but jarring to watch him literally say, basically, no, not literally, but figuratively say to Jimmy Butler, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I got this.
Yeah, I mean, the level of difficulty on those shots, I kept thinking, oh, I can't believe he's taking that shot. And then again and again, he would hit
a lot of
no,
yes shots.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was 8 of 11. Like, those are ridiculously efficient three-point shooting numbers that you'll rarely see. And for a player like Rozier, who has struggled, as you pointed out earlier, and the level of difficulty, again, late in the shot clock, again and again, they would try to go to Bam. They would try to go to somebody else. Jimmy would drive into a double team, and he wouldn't take the shot. And then all of a sudden, it would be Terry Rozier kind of scrambling around the edges and the perimeter, and he'd have the ball late in the shot clock, and he just said, you know what? I don't care if I'm fading away, if I'm falling right, left, whatever, in the corner, at the top of the break, I'm going to take that shot, and he would nail it. And it's unbelievable. And that's he's had the willingness to take those shots throughout his career. And that's something that a lot of maybe Heat fans didn't recognize. His early career in Boston, that's why he earned the nickname Scary Terry, was because he rose up to the challenge of these big moments. And hopefully he'll continue doing so for Miami.
The only question left is how many credit cookies does he get? I also have another question. Like, is it too much shooting for Terry Rozier? Is he too willing to take those shots? We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your car alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Well, make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, David, it's another Miami Heat win, which means it's time to get in the kitchen and whip up some credit cookies. Who's getting cookies tonight?
This was a little difficult. It really was. I know there were two clear players that deserve cookies, but there were also some minor contributions from across the roster. And yet, we're kind of overlooked that. Like, we had a conversation in the locker room, and you know what? We came to a conclusion. The minor contributions don't really matter. On offense, it was Jason. I'm sorry, Jason Terry. It was Terry Rozier.
Definitely not Jason Terry.
And on defense, we were talking about it before the game, and it's kind of crept on there. And then on defense, it's Haywood Highsmith. His phenomenal performance, the three-pointer late in the game. That's basically it. 6 credit cookies for Terry Rozier, 4 for Haywood Highsmith. That's the breakdown tonight, and that's all we really need.
To me, I come away from this game, and like, the offensive player of the game was Terry Rozier, and the defensive player of the game was Haywood Highsmith. I do want to talk more about Highsmith's defense because, oh my gosh, and what this means for him and the Miami Heat's playoff rotation and all these things. We're going to get all into that. But Terry Rozier, going back to our conversation from the first segment.
Your question, the leadoff question going into this segment.
I know that there's a fear that, okay, is this an inefficient scorer who is a volume shooter who is occasionally going to have efficient nights? And is he just on a hot tear right now? And it's a fair question. But my response to that would be, first of all, I'm not worried. Let me just make that clear. And if Jimmy Butler is only going to take 12 shots, and if he's only going to take 2 in the fourth quarter, then I want Terry Rozier taking these shots. And I do think that part of this was, a relatively quiet Jimmy Butler night, dare I say even maybe a passive Jimmy Butler night offensively. I thought he was really engaged defensively in this game.
That's fair.
But maybe he just looks over and says, you know what, Terry Rozier's got it. I don't need to do it. Terry Rozier's got the hot hand, and that sounds like Jimmy Butler. That kind of seems like the thing that Jimmy Butler wants to do, right? Is, hey, when Bam's got it going, when Tyler's got it going, when Duncan's got it going, I get those guys the ball. Terry Rozier's new here, but he's got it going. I'm going to make sure that he's getting the ball. And even then, at the end of the game, Jimmy Butler tried to get the ball. And Terry Rozier just took it and made the last shot and then sealed the win. So I'm not really concerned about it. And tonight was very efficient, 10 for 15. If he does that every game, the Heat are going to be in a good spot. He's not going to, though. But I'm okay with at least him being aggressive in this spot because the Heat need him to be that.
Yeah, I think taking those shots is important. You've made that point for years now. When somebody has to be willing to take those shots, and when it comes to the offense being bogged down, and sometimes you dribble, you look for a foul call to bail you out, etc. You don't get that. Next thing you know, you're taking expiring a shot as the clock is expiring, and that leads to some really pathetic offensive possessions. I don't know that Terry's going to be this effective. I'm sure he'll have big games. And I answered that question because a lot of fans are thinking about whether or not he's going to continue this hot streak of his. But somebody needs to take these shots, and I'm okay with it. And at the same time, I think he's experienced enough as a player where he understands there's a balance that's necessary. His playmaking is still a factor. He only had 3 assists tonight. Why would he dish the ball when he's shooting it as well as he is? But I think moving forward, there are going to be games where he's not shooting it well. He's going to say, you know what? Somebody else might have the hot hand, or somebody else might have an open look.
And we have seen those games.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have seen him go 4 of 9 with 10 assists. Yeah, and even tonight, it wasn't like, hey, guys, get out of my way. Let me get into isolation. Hey, come up, get a screen. Let me get switched onto Mitchell Robinson or Hartenstein or Precious Achiuwa, and let me just ISO. That's not what he's doing. He was running pick and roll.
Yeah,
the pick and roll was the offense late in the game. The Knicks, by design, took that roll away from Bam Adebayo. They were crowding everything. That lob, like the Heat probably tried to get that lob 2 or 3 times between the first and third quarter. Every single time.
Rozier,
Mitchell
Duncan,
Robinson or somebody knocking it away.
Yeah.
And credit to the Knicks, they executed their game plan at that end, and Terry Rozier just beat them. Like, Terry Rozier said, I see your game plan. You're going to give me these shots because you got to take something away. You can't take everything away.
Right.
And he even made the shots that they did take away. They took away some of those shots. They took away that shot at the end, and he still made it.
Yeah.
He had one in front of the Miami's bench where it was a perfect contest, and he still made the shot. And so
fouled on one attempt, and one also where after hitting a 3-pointer, like and getting a 4-point play, it was just an incredible night for him.
When you don't have Kevin Durant or somebody like that to like basically just score Luka Doncic, like guys like that. No, I'm just saying when they don't have that super offensive star, then you do need somebody like Terry Rozier who could do this on occasion. The Heat are not going to rely on Tyler Rozier to do this every night. That's not the game plan. Eventually, the idea is that Tyler Hero will come back, and he'll have some of these nights every once in a while. Duncan Robinson, who did not shoot particularly well, is capable of having big nights from three-point range. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, when we've seen it a million times, capable of scoring 30-plus in any given game. But let's talk about Haywood Highsmith's defense. I thought Miami's defense tonight in general was phenomenal. I thought they were on a string. They executed well. This has been a trend for the Heat lately. They have now climbed to 5th in defensive rating, which is so important for this team. And talking to players after the game, I think they looked at that and said, we need to be a top 5 defensive rating team, because even Terry Rozier after the game mentioned, hey, we're a top 5 defensive rating team now. Like, you don't just... Like, that's something that you're focused on, right? Yeah. That's something that you have to be aware of to track, right? And so they are now officially an elite defensive team, and they looked like it tonight against a really good New York Knicks team. I know that they were without OG Anunoby. They were without Julius Randle, who has not been with them for like 2.5 months now. But Miles McBride scored 24 points. Jalen Brunson still had 20. Dante DiVincenzo had 31 points on 21 shots, 6 of 15 from three-point range for him. They got 16 points off the bench from Alec Burks. From Bojan Bogdanovic.
Oh, yeah.
So they did have guys who scored, and yet they only were able to put up 99 points. Yeah. Again, Miami's defense has been awesome. Haywood Highsmith was such a big part of that. Played the entire fourth quarter and put the clamps on Jalen Brunson. The clamps on Jalen Brunson. And there was a point where I thought Jalen Brunson was like looking at Haywood Highsmith like, who is this guy?
Oh, no doubt. Like, there's always a player that says, there's this one guy who has my number. And whether it's he just scores on me at will or locks me up defensively and I cannot score on them, I don't want to go this route. I'm old enough to remember when everybody and their grandmother was decreed to be the designated Jordan stopper. Whenever Michael Jordan would go off, and it was always like, oh, in this matchup, it's going to be this guy, Byron Russell from the Utah Jazz. You remember that iconic shot that Jordan hit over him after his in his last year with the Chicago Bulls, etc. Byron Russell was a Jordan stopper. That dude didn't stop shit. Anyway, when I look at Haywood Highsmith, he has a sense of timing, a sense of physicality, and just an understanding of exactly how to position himself. It's film study. And Eric Spoelstra was asked about it after the game, and he mentioned how much work he's put in behind the scenes, talking about not just the practicing, but also the film study, the understanding. He really did seem to know exactly where Brunson was turning. Like,
yeah,
he's got that
mirrored
little spin move. And he's drawing contact. He's flailing an arm. He's shoving with an elbow, etc. Haywood did a perfect job. I really want to rewatch this game almost exclusively to watch these Highsmith possessions defensively because he was so good. Like there were times there where he would just pull his hands back. You're not going to call that foul on me.
Yep.
You're not going to trick me with that stuff. And he would just do a really good job of, like you said, shadowing him. So
he would pull the hands back and then raise them up.
Right. Look at
and
me.
Lean. So I'm not fouling him, but also Jalen Brunson's not shooting it over me either because I got my hands up.
Yeah.
He talked about all of this stuff after the game in the locker room too, about how it's the positioning, it's the length, it's getting into the guy without fouling him. But it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it.
Yeah, he did.
I thought Miami's defense on Jalen Brunson was really interesting in this game because they started Jalen Brunson running a lot of pick and roll, getting a lot of screens to try to get mismatches. He was trying to attack Duncan Robinson early, as teams are wont to do. But Miami sent two the ball and would just keep two with him. As Jalen Brunson would stretch out, they would just keep two with him, and then they would get into rotation. And I thought their rotations were so on point, on a string in this game. And that was I guess that was the game plan. That was the starting. And then I don't know if they assumed that, okay, eventually Haywood Highsmith is going to check in and we're just going to let him go man on man with Brunson, or if they sort of discovered that throughout the game as a thing that would work.
Yeah, I don't
because
think
they
so.
went away from two on the ball and they said, no, Haywood's got it.
Yeah,
and then that was it.
It
And
does
then their
not seem
defense really
premeditated.
put the clamps on because now it was 5-on-5 instead of 4-on-5.
Yeah, no, I agree with that second take there. I don't think it was premeditated. I think it was just kind of saying, oh, you know what? We
have
found
here.
somebody.
Yeah.
A guy who has a combination of speed and physical strength to be able to match up the length and the anticipation. And he, again, credit all the work that he's put in behind the scenes because he did a fantastic job tonight. And I think that was a huge story. Again, we're going to look at Terry Rozier. Everybody's going to talk about that incredible shot making, but lost in the shadows of all the work that went into tonight's victory was Haywood Highsmith's defense. Great game from him tonight. I really like seeing him step up to the challenge, and he did a great job. And look, if people are already starting to anticipate a possible matchup between the Knicks and the Heat in the playoffs, I like the idea of Highsmith being able to keep Brunson from getting off, getting 30, 40 points a game. The 20-point outage, it looks great, right? 10 of those were free throws. Like he was 9 of 10 at the free throw line, 5 of 18 overall at the floor.
So he scored 11 points from the field. It's not a lot.
That's not great.
Not for somebody who's in MVP conversations right now.
And I'm not knocking Brunson. I mean, I love Jalen Brunson. We've talked about how dangerous he is. We talked about him, again, being like a top 10 player in the NBA. At least in some stretches, he's been very, very good this season. But I think Highsmith might have just had his number a little bit tonight.
As many times as I have Terry Rozier stuff written down in my notes, I'm looking at them right now. I have just literally Highsmith's defense on Brunson. I just have I'm not even sure what I meant. I'm just kept writing it in my notes like a crazy person. It was that good. Has it been good enough, plus the 3-point shooting, to work himself into the permanent rotation going forward? It kind of feels like that. We're going to talk about that when we get to our listener questions next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV, your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick you can plug into your existing TV, and that provides access to movies, TV episodes, and free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament still going on. You're going to want to have a Fire TV because they recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, including the Locked On Podcast Network and most of the big pro leagues, college conferences, and many more. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports. So keep track of everything that you love about sports, not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, whatever you're looking for. Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices has you covered. If you haven't checked them out, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Also, make sure that you got April 5th, this Friday, circled on your calendar. Locked On Heat watch party for Heat versus Rockets at the Taurus in Coconut Grove. Game starts at 8 p.m. Happy hour going through the game, and we will be there, and we hope you will be there too.
Signature drink.
A signature drink. We're going to be debuting the first ever Locked On Heat cocktail. Well, not the first ever Locked On Heat cocktail. You and I have consumed several cocktails, but this is the first one with the name on it.
Some on air even we've had.
Some on air, that's true. Let's get to our listener questions. Thanks to everybody who sent in these questions using the hashtag AskLOHeat. You can reach us, LockedOnHeat@gmail.com, Locked On Heat on Instagram as well. This question comes from Mark, who writes in, if things play out and we face New York in the playoffs in the 3-6 matchup, how confident are you both after tonight's win that we can advance past them, even if both teams are at full strength? What do you think?
I think if both teams are at full strength, meaning that OG and Julius will be back for the Knicks, and if Tyler is back, because that's really the only
full
player
strength.
that's full strength for Miami. I like Miami's chances. I was talking to some other reporters earlier before the game, and they were indicating, at least in their opinion, that maybe New York might actually play better without Julius Randle. I think Julius, I mean, hell of a shot taker sometimes. He can have a good game here and there, but he can be somewhat inefficient too. We saw this in the playoffs. If he's rounding into form and he's still coming back from injury, and I think I read earlier today that there might be some prolonged damage from whatever injury he's recovering from.
Yeah.
It might be a little trickier than had previously been expected. He might be more hurtful than helpful if he makes a return too early. OG, I know that elbow, they switched the diagnosis on his elbow, and they're calling it elbow tendonitis or something along those lines. I might be misspeaking here. The point is they're both going to be dealing with injury, and just like Tyler Hero, they're going to be coming back at a point in time when Miami or where their respective teams need them to be at full strength entering the playoffs. That's unrealistic. So looking at these two teams right now, New York will have the home court advantage. I still like Miami's chances. I always like Miami's chances against every team in the league, with the exception of maybe the Denver Nuggets. So I like Miami's chances against the New York Knicks, even if both teams were at full strength.
So the Heat beat the Knicks tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks lost to the Washington Wizards tonight.
Without Dame Lillard, but with Giannis. And
I
Chris
can't
Middleton.
believe what I'm about to say here.
Uh-oh.
Every time I think I'm out, this team pulls me back in. They're at full strength, almost. No Tyler Hero, but we got Kevin Love off the bench. Terry Rozier doing his thing. Duncan Robinson back in the starting lineup. We didn't have to deal with Patty Mills minutes or DeLon Wright minutes or anything like that. I like the rotation tonight. Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith, Jaime Jaquez as the wings coming off the bench. I love all of it.
No point guard lineups out there.
Really interesting stuff, and I love it. And the way that this defense has been playing, and if we can get that extra level from Jimmy Butler at some point, if that flip is going to switch eventually, that switch is going to flip eventually. It's just what Jimmy needs to do. He needs to flip those two things.
I like the way you said it the first time.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I am not afraid of any team in the Eastern Conference except for the Boston Celtics. I have respectful fear of the Boston Celtics, and if what they have done in the regular season deserves that. Sure. And it would be ridiculous to think anything otherwise.
The question was about the New York Knicks.
And that's what I'm telling you. I'm going one step further. I'm not afraid of the Knicks. I'm not afraid of the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm not afraid of the Cavs. I'm not afraid of any of these other teams. The only team that I would really hesitate to pick the Heat in a series against at this point is the Boston Celtics. Now, this is me after a big win against the Knicks at Kaseya Center minutes after the game ended. So take that for what it's worth. Right. This is not me after the Wizards lost. That is correct. Take this with a grain of salt, okay? I thought I was out. I am fully pulled back in. I can't understand this team. It drives me crazy. Okay, next one. Adam writes in, is something wrong with Jimmy? He was engaged tonight but didn't do anything in the second half. Is something wrong with Jimmy? I wouldn't go so far as to say there's something wrong with Jimmy, but he did seem a little passive again on offense. Defensively, I thought he was super engaged. Offensively, he was passive. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's really the indicator of an aging player that's saving himself for when the games matter the most. And that's not necessarily a good attitude to have, because there are certainly games during the 82-game stretch of the regular season where he
feels like
needs to
these
step up.
games have mattered the most so far.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe he's saving himself. Maybe it's the beginning of the end. We'll find out, right? There's so much at stake for so many teams and so many individual players when it comes to the playoffs, right? It makes or breaks your career in many senses. And for Jimmy, who's always been recognized as a gamer, a guy who steps up when the lights matter most. Even earlier today after shoot-around, the New York Knicks player Josh Hart saying that right around April, all of a sudden Jimmy takes his focus off these side quests that he pursues during the regular season so that he can focus on the main quest and he'll be just as dangerous as ever. That's the expectation. That's the hope for a lot of Heat fans. But it's a dangerous game to play if he can't switch that flip or flip that switch, depending on your perspective.
I would have been interested to see what would have happened if Terry Rozier, instead of being 10 for 15, was 3 of 12 going into the fourth quarter.
Would Jimmy have
and
taken
would
it
Jimmy
up?
have taken it over? And that's the part that I don't know. It's the part that Terry Rozier's impressive game kind of masks in a sense. I don't know if Jimmy Butler was just saying, hey, Terry Rozier, you got the hot hand. Go
to work.
It gives me less of a reason to have to do it and flip that switch earlier than I want to. But then again, maybe he was just, I don't know. I don't know. It's a fair question to Adam's point here. It's a fair question. We're not going to know the answer probably until we do or until it's too late. Yeah. Drew writes in, if and when Tyler Hero comes back, who do you see in the rotation get their minutes reduced or eliminated, barring any more injuries? It's a great question. I mean, Miami going with 9 deep tonight with the starting 5, Caleb, Jaime, Kevin Love, and Haywood Highsmith off the bench. If they want to go 9 deep, then that means Tyler Hero is going to take somebody's minutes. And I don't know that it could be Haywood based on how he's played. Defensively, he's giving you something absolutely elite at that end. Top 1 to 5% in the league kind of defender at this point at that wing spot. And when he's shooting the way he's shooting, 2 for 4 from three-point range tonight, the big one late in the game, and lately he's been on a tear there, you can't really take him out of the game, right? Because now he's a factor on offense. Had a nice backdoor cut in this game. So
a dunk.
At a dunk, but so whose minutes does Tyler take?
Well, when it comes down to something like this, you look at Haywood, and he has a definitive skill. We were talking about this during the game, not necessarily in context of what Tyler's return here, but you can't take Highsmith out of the rotation at this point because he's just become too valuable. Maybe it was just matchup based, but it's also indicative again of the work that he's put in behind the scenes. Something that Spoelstra loves. Like we've seen players throughout Spo's tenure, when they put in the work behind the scenes in practice that we don't see, they get elevated to being part of the rotation. And that's not to say that other players aren't practicing just as hard, but he recognizes that. And I can't imagine a world where Spo takes Highsmith out of the rotation. So given all that, I think you're looking at probably Jaime Jaquez getting his minutes cut. Jaime's impact has been incredibly minimal. And it's unfortunate considering what a spark he was and how electric he was. But I think it's 1, the long grind of the regular season. 2, he's also a rookie. I think the book is out on him scouting-wise. I think players are aware of what he's capable of. And
they're not biting for the pump fakes as much. And
so I think it's a combination of different factors. Maybe he just needs rest, and maybe he'll flip the switch once the playoffs start too. That's a hope and an expectation that maybe some fans have. But right now, when you're looking at what Jaime does, he's just such a general jack of all trades, which is fine. But right now, he's not excelling in any of those. And that's problematic because you need somebody to go out there and bring an area of strength, and he doesn't have it right now. Maybe he will.
Yeah.
He showed it earlier, that energy big off the bench, that kind of energy wing off the bench. But right now, he's just not bringing that same energy. He's not being as productive. And so when you look at either him or Highsmith, I think you have to go with Haywood.
Right. Because it's not going to be Caleb. It's not going to be Kevin Love because it doesn't play the same position. So it's... And we kind of got that hint already, right? Yeah. We used to see Jimmy Butler come out and then Jaime Jaquez come in as sort of that first wing off the bench. Tonight, that was not the case. It was Caleb Martin who came in as the first wing off the bench, and Jaime Jaquez only played 12.5 minutes in this game, where Caleb played 23.5 minutes and Haywood played 28 minutes in this game.
Including the entirety of the fourth quarter.
Exactly. So, not only is Haywood Highsmith in the rotation, he might be in the closing lineup at this point.
I think that was a question we were asked as well, too.
We did get that question, and I think if his I don't know that we have a set defensive closing lineup for the Heat.
Yeah.
But if Haywood's playing like this and he's got like a particularly beneficial matchup, and if he's doing this to a top scorer, then he's going to be closing the game, and I think Spo's just going to go accordingly. Jaime Jaquez has played so many games for the Heat this year. That rookie wall is real. You talk to any rookie in any season, they will all admit the rookie wall is real. And he has had to step up and play so many minutes and so many games for a team that has dealt with so many injuries that, you know what? I wouldn't mind if he basically just, they need him. And this stretch is really important. But if they're able to escape the play-in tournament, that might be really helpful. That week off would be so helpful for Jaime, because you can't really afford to not play him as long as Hero is out. But you'd like to maybe buy him some time here, so it's going to be tricky. But yeah, I think at this point, those might be the minutes that come away and go to Tyler Hero here. So, of course, we'll see what happens. Big win tonight. Another big game Thursday night against the Philadelphia 76ers. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your podcast app.